average workday at RCA?
Yeah. When I was down at the powerhouse, that's where I spent the most of my years, so that's where I'll relate to. Most of the time in the powerhouse, I was responsible for any of the new fellows that would come in to take their information and give them information. And like after they would get married, I would call them up because they would forget that they had to change everything over and include their wives on the insurances and all the different things that they had to do. And then the biggest time, they would always wait for me because I was the girl that delivered the paychecks. So they would know when I was going to the bank, and they would be waiting for me when I would come back. And I loved it because as a secretary, I just didn't sit, as most secretaries would, and just do your filing, your typing, and so forth. I was up and down to the bank all the time, and because the M80 guys worked in all various locations, I was throughout the entire complex of RCA, because if the pipe fitters were working in 6 building or 8 building or 10 building, I had to go give the paychecks to their head boss there in that building. So I would be in 10 building, then I'd be in 8 building and 2 building, and I would be all over the place. And it wouldn't be unusual for my boss to call me and say, "Ray, grab your pad and pen and come up onto the roof. I have some dictation for you." And I'd be up on the middle of the roof somewhere taking dictation. And then you did your typical filing and sending letters and typing letters. And if you got finished with your workload, you could just go over and get one of the other bosses and get some work from them and do whatever you had to do. But it was nice. It was easy going. Everybody was friendly, and everybody was willing to help. If a secretary got through her workload and had time, they would always go to another boss's desk and help the girl out on that desk, get some of her workload done. It was very nice. I loved it. And it was never boring because I never knew what was happening down in those shops.
What kinds of changes were made over the years you were at RCA?
I would say the biggest change I saw was when shifts were made from RCA to GE. The younger, much younger people in higher positions, different types of ideas, different methods that you bring from the company you're with to the company you're going to, and then the methods the company you're coming into, the intermixing and seeing younger people in higher level positions and the changes that brought about. I think that was the biggest thing I saw.
How much did RCA influence the growth of Camden?
Well, I think it had a big impact on Camden because all your little businesses depended on them. And to be quite honest with you, we kind of depended on them too, because we could just walk out of our work facility door, go a half a block up, and you had everything you needed. If you had to bring home something from work, you didn't have to travel too far. You could just go right up there, get what you needed. And you got a rapport with those store owners and then with you. And I can tell you from personal experience that having had that rapport, when I fell into some bad situations, and I needed some clues, at the time, when you buy things and they were on layaway and there was a lot of little dress stores and whatnot, and I needed some new clothing and I didn't have a lot of money because I was just starting, you couldn't take your clothes out even if you had them on layaway until they were all paid off, and then you could get them. But because I was always in that little store, the lady used to let me, as I paid off an outfit, I was allowed to take it and be able to use it for work. So I think RCA had a big impact on these people and then on the people of the city as well. And then as things started to diminish and different things happened throughout the city and Camden Suit was no longer there and so forth, you started to see the little buildings, the little businesses, little by little, they faded away. Because the amount of people employed in the city was no longer the same.
How long did you work at RCA?
18 years.
Why did you leave?
Mainly because of the layoff after the GE takeover. Eventually, most of the RCA people were laid off. A handful were kept on by the GE group, but most of us were laid off and given a very good transition place. They had us set up for very good transitional people, good termination benefits to help you along till you found a position, and many people in that transition center to help you find new positions, and we did.
Can you describe how you felt when GE took over RCA?
Yeah, it was a little different. You kind of saw an era kind of going down, you never thought RCA wouldn't be there. I mean, it was a staple from the time I can remember as a child. I had many family members work at RCA, and even while I was employed, one of my uncles worked in the M80 group, and I had another uncle that worked over in the deaf facility while I was there, but I forget what you asked me.
How did you feel when RCA was
very different. It was because I guess it was a new transition of people, and every company has their own way, and of course it's business, and you're going to bring, when you take over a new company, you're going to bring your staff and your people, just as if we took over, we're going to bring our staff and our people. But it was a little difficult at first because it was a little on the standoffish side when the new people came in. The people you worked with for years and years, you kind of got to know them, so it was very easy to say, hi, how you doing, how's the wife and kids, or whatever. But when the new people came in, you didn't know exactly where you stood exactly, and whether you could be that friendly or not be that friendly, because you didn't know their personalities yet. And with some you could, and with some you couldn't. It just depended on the individual, but it didn't quite feel the same as it did, as we all felt very family oriented there. It didn't quite feel the same.
What did you enjoy about working at RCA?
I enjoyed all the people, all the different things that I learned and saw. I never saw the cleanup that we had when we looked like we were invaded by the space people at one point. When they came down to the powerhouse, they had to deal with the asbestos in the older buildings, and we had all these people walking around in white suits and all hooded up and shields all around, the paraphernalia you couldn't get near, you couldn't touch, and big drapes hanging everywhere. So you learned different things that you normally wouldn't have encountered. And to see what I loved seeing the old buildings, and up in, I think it was, I can't remember the building, I don't know if it was 2 building, where on the second, up on the 8th floor was this magnificent dance floor with a balcony where in its day you can just see the people down there dancing, and all the people up in the balcony that would have been looking down and watching everything, and the table set up. To see that kind of stuff, and the architecture of the buildings, like in one building in particular where the sound studios were, the recording studios were, you don't see that kind of architecture anymore in the buildings. And it was just just all the things I encountered, all the different people I encountered. At one point, I was part like a liaison person between the Army and the Navy, who were permanently stationed. I believe it was 8 building, and they had either the 6th and 7th floor or the 7th and 8th floor. They occupied 2 floors within the building on a permanent basis. And I never thought I'd ever be dealing with the military people on a level, and I did. And you learned so much and you saw so much, and that's what I loved about it. It was different every day. You never knew what was going to be around the corner, including snakes. Snakes in the city. Yes, I know that sounds a little odd, but one day we had a shipment come into the powerhouse, and it came, I believe it came from Texas or Mexico, I can't remember, but I think it was Texas. But as they unpacked the crates out, came the snakes with the material that was packaged in the crates. And also, one day I'm looking out the window, and I thought I was seeing things because it's all concrete, because it was concrete, and then it was the blacktop parking lot, but there was a little crack, and a piece of the concrete was missing. And out comes this big black snake, and he was about 6 feet in the air, up as high as our window, and the rest of him was still on the ground. So I called my boss over because I knew nobody was going to believe me that I'm looking at a snake outside the window. And lo and behold, there's the snake. Well, he went back in his little hole, but he did come back out again, and he got tangled up underneath the undercarriage of a truck out there. And one of the guys got him untwisted, but then eventually he got hit with a car. And he was laying in the street one day. But that was our adventure with the snakes down in the city. Because, you know, you tell somebody you saw a snake up in the city, they think you're loony.
Well, before I turn off the recording equipment, is there anything else you'd like to share about your experiences at RCA?
Well, I had some good times there. And as I said, I made friends there that I'm still friends with to this day. I enjoyed being part and able to help Jerry put together that RCA dinner that we do every year, because it's so nice to catch up with everybody. But the only sad part about it is every year you lose a member somewhere along the line, you know, either through old age or perhaps an illness. And that's the sad part. But we remember all the good times that we had with them, so it makes it all worthwhile. But you do miss them. And it was a big part of your life for so long, and my own life, that I'm just glad that I had the opportunity to work there and to learn and see and meet all the people that I did, because it was a great experience for me. And in all the places I've ever worked since I was laid off, there was never the same kind of camaraderie that you felt, that we all felt, not just myself, but all of us that worked there all felt that. And even talk about it a lot when we're at our dinners, because people have gone on to other jobs or are retired completely. And again, they said it was never the same as it was when we were at RCA. And I'm just glad I had the opportunity to be there.
Well, thank you so much for agreeing to be interviewed.
You're quite welcome.